this offering, we will look into how to access BigQuery from a cloud function, specifically a cloud function written in Ruby. To begin with, I have a BigQuery dataset metrics in which I have a table called page load metrics. The page load metrics is a simple table which has a metric field and a total time and login time fields. First, we will write some Ruby code to access the BigQuery. For that, I have set up a simple Ruby project which we will be using the bundler to package it. So the project has a gem file and an app.rb file. Now if I go into the gem file, it has just two libraries declared, Functions Framework and Google Cloud BigQuery. The Functions Framework lets you write lightweight functions that run in many different environments like the cloud function. The good thing about Functions Framework is that if you write the code using Functions Framework, we can also test it from localhost. So first let us write the code and test it in local, and if everything is working fine, we will deploy the function onto the cloud. So to begin with, first we will have to install the libraries. For that, we can do the bundle install command. This will pull the required gems from the rubygems.org and install all the dependencies. So we have all the dependencies installed now. Now before writing the code, we can go to the interactive Ruby shell and test whether we are able to access the BigQuery. Now before we get into the interactive shell, one thing to note is that we need to have some credentials to connect to the BigQuery. Now if you read the documentation for Google Cloud, they say that we need to create an environment variable called Google application credentials, and it should point to the credentials JSON file. So here I have created a Google Cloud account and downloaded the credential JSON, and I have set the environment variable Google application credential pointing to the same file. So this is a mandatory step before we try out testing accessing the Google BigQuery from Ruby. Now let us launch the interactive Ruby shell with the bundle exec command. First, we will load the Google Cloud library for BigQuery. Now we can see whether we can access the BigQuery from the Ruby shell. So first let me check if the library is loaded properly. Yes, it is there. So I can do BigQuery equal to and new, and it will take the argument of the Google GCP project. So in my case, the project name is basis hyphen 379613. So this is nothing but your Google project ID. This is also, you can get it in the top of the Google Cloud Console. So here, if you see here, so this is the ID I am talking about. So now we have got the BigQuery handle. We can find out what are all the data sets available in that BigQuery instance using BigQuery.dataset and metrics. So metrics is my data set. So I have loaded my data set. Now I can do dataset.tables.count. So this gives me how many tables are there in this particular data set. I can also query for a particular table. In this case, there is only one table, so I can say first dot name. Our name is not a property, so we can actually do say headers. So this is actually the columns available in the table. I can also do something like row count. Sorry, it's rows count. So it returns 0, which means there are no records in the table. So this shows that we are able to access the BigQuery from the Ruby shell. Now let us write the program to access the same. So here I am back in the Ruby project. So let me copy paste some code here. So the code is here. So I will walk you through the code. So here we are using the functions framework to launch an HTTP endpoint called metrics. This takes the request as the input. So first we are parsing the input body. Then as we showed in that IRB shell, we are establishing the connection to the Google project. And then we are querying this particular data set called metrics. And then what we are trying to do is we are trying to insert the data into this table. So for that we are accepting the data as a body for this particular HTTP request, and in this case what I am expecting is a JSON which shows like table and say table name and operation, say insert. Today we support insert. Then I can also give data and it will accept an array of data. So here each row or the element of the array will be the row of the table. So in this case, like metric, it will be some XYZ, what is the total time, and 100, and login time, say 200. So this is how I am expecting the data. So in this block of code, I am just checking whether the data is available or not. So I am just checking if the table is given. If the table is not given, it will give error, no table given. If the operation is not given, it will give no operation. If the data is not there, it will give data is not there. If everything is correct, we connect to the table and we push that particular row, and then finally insert the row, and finally we will print how many records got inserted and whether the insert is proper or not. So this is a sample program in Ruby which we have written to connect to the BigQuery and insert some records into the BigQuery table. Now let us see how to execute this from localhost. So we can do the bundle exec here again. So we can do the bundle exec command. And we can say functions framework Ruby and target metrics. So the metrics is nothing but the name which we gave here in the function framework HTTP, this metrics. So when you launch this, it will start a server. Oh, unfortunately it is giving an error that the port is already in use. So I will kill the previous port and again run this. So it will start serving in the port 8080. Now we can go and try out whether this is working or not. For that we can use the curl command and I can use and hit the metrics, localhost 8080 metrics. Now if I run this, it will give an error, no table given. So as we have seen in the code, if the table is not there, it will give no table given. So we can start populating the data raw, and I give the table name first. Now if I give this, it will give no operation given. So I will give the operation as insert, and I also need to give the data. For now I will just give an empty array. So it is complaining no data. So now we can start giving the data. So the data is, the table has, if you remember, there are 3 columns in the table: metric. So I will say metric 1, and there was a total time. I will say some 1000, and there was a login time. I will say it is, say, 800, and I will execute this. So it says that it has inserted 1 record and it has been successful. We can go into the BigQuery and check whether it worked. So if I go to BigQuery and run this, you can see that it has created 1 metric record and 1800 which we gave. So here you can see that the created at field is coming as null because we didn't pass any data. So instead of passing that data manually, we can write some code to populate it automatically. So here, while we are iterating through the records, we can simply inject that created at field with time.now. Now once you do this, we can go back and restart the server. So after restarting, I can again try to execute the same command. It inserted 1 more record. Now we will go and check in the console if the second record has the time populated. So as you can see here, the created it has been populated. So at this point, we have created a Google Cloud function in Ruby language. We are also able to mount it on our local host and test the Cloud function using the curl, hitting the localhost 8080 URL, and we also verified that the record has been successfully inserted into the database. Now we need to deploy this Google Cloud function onto the cloud. For deploying the Google Cloud function, we have this command gcloud functions deploy, and the endpoint name and the runtime and the trigger type. So the endpoint, the runtime and the trigger type are mandatory parameters. So when you do this command, it would try to push this code onto the cloud and create the cloud function in the Google Cloud. So this will take up to 2 minutes for deploying. Now we can come into the Google Cloud Functions and see that the metrics cloud function has been successfully deployed. We can open that. We can check the source. So here you can see the same code which we wrote in Ruby, which has been hosted here. And if you go to the trigger section, you can get the URL which can be used for triggering this particular cloud function. We can go back to the terminal and we can use the curl command again to hit the cloud function. So in this case, here you can see that I am hitting this particular URL, which is the cloud function URL, and I am also passing the payload, which is the table name and the data. But there are 2 extra parameters which I am giving, which is the HTTP headers. One is the Google project and also the authorization token. Now, if you have to hit the Google Cloud function, you need to have a authentication done before we hit the cloud function. For this, Google recommends to create service accounts, and the service accounts can be given the relevant roles which can be used for achieving that particular task. In this case, we want to create a service account which can invoke a cloud function. So for this purpose, I have went ahead and created a service account in the Google console. So here in the service accounts, I created a demo account here, and the demo account key I have downloaded, and I have set it as a default account. So if I go give gcloud auth list, this particular account is what I have created as a service account. And now if I try to run the curl command, it again shows that it has inserted one record. I can try to insert one more. So it inserted one more. So the token you can also verify here using this command, print identity token. It prints the token. This is what you are passing as the authorization token. Now we can go back to the BigQuery console and check if this particular records have been created. So let me query this. You can see that metrics curl has been created and the time and everything has been populated properly. So that's all about how to create a cloud function, testing the cloud function in your local host, and finally we also saw how to deploy the cloud function to the Google Cloud and testing with the curl command.